Today is the third Sunday of Advent, and the third sermon in this series called The Word Made Flesh. We've been looking at the traditional Advent themes of hope and peace and joy and love, and thinking about how each of those words has been made flesh in the person of Jesus. The problem is that we use these words so often and for so many things that they have lost some of their power. A child can say, "I hope I get a new bicycle for Christmas." But that's not what we mean when we talk about Christ as the hope of the world, is it? I hope not. It's the same with each of those other words. With peace and joy and love, we have worn them smooth through constant handling. So I've been trying to take some time in these sermons to define them, to talk about what we mean and what we don't mean when we use words like hope or peace or joy or love. Today I want to talk to you about joy, and I want to begin by saying what joy is not. I got some help on this topic from an article by Marcus Borg entitled "When Heaven and Earth Meet," which I found in a 1996 edition of a magazine called The Living Pulpit that I dragged down off the shelves in my study and blew the dust off of. You never know when these things are going to be useful to you. Borg says that joy is not pleasure. Pleasure, as C.S. Lewis remarked, is often in our power. Joy never is. We know what activities commonly give us pleasure and can count on them to do so unless we are too tired or too preoccupied. Happiness covers a broad spectrum, from a fairly steady state of general contentment with one's life to special moments of delight and feeling good. But joy seems different. And then Borg describes an experience he had on an airplane a few years earlier, flying from Tel Aviv to New York. He says, "About halfway across the Atlantic, I became aware of the bright daylight in the cabin subtly beginning to change. Everything began to look exquisitely beautiful and precious. The fabric on the seat back in front of me, the faces of the passengers around me, including a man whom earlier in the flight I had thought of as the ugliest man I had ever seen. Even he looked beautiful. The food that was placed before me, the sunlight and the clouds outside the window, my cheeks were wet with tears. For about 45 minutes I experienced peace, beauty, and joy. Everything looked so lovely, and I loved everything. There were strong intimations of mortality, with some sadness, but no anxiety. I felt immense gratitude simply for the experience of being. I knew that I wanted to remember forever how the world looked in that state and how I felt about being alive in those minutes." The Irish poet William Butler Yeats describes a similar experience in a London coffee shop at the beginning of the 20th century. He writes, "My 50th year had come and gone. I sat, a solitary man in a crowded London shop, an open book, an empty cup on the marble tabletop. While on the shop and street I gazed, my body of a sudden blazed. And 20 minutes, more or less, it seemed so great my happiness that I was blessed and could bless." Yeats uses the word happiness, but he seems to be describing the same kind of joy Marcus Borg experienced on that airplane over the Atlantic. And then there's the experience of the French mathematician and philosopher Blaise Pascal, who wrote down on a scrap of paper, "In the year of grace, 1654, Monday, 23 November, from about 10:30 in the evening till about half an hour after midnight, fire. God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob, not of the philosophers and of the learned. Certitude, certitude, emotion, joy, 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 tears of joy. My God, let me not be separated from Thee forever. Pascal carried that description with him the rest of his life, and it was found on his body when he died. And then just one more, because I like it so much, from Billy Bray in the 19th century, whom William James describes as an excellent little illiterate English evangelist. Bray told his audiences, "In an instant, the Lord made me so happy that I cannot express what I felt. I shouted for joy. I praised God with my whole heart. Everything looked new to me. The people, the fields, the cattle, the trees. I was like a new man in a new world. I can't help praising the Lord. As I go along the street, I lift up one foot and it seems to say, 'Glory.' And I lift up the other foot and it seems to say, 'Amen.' And so they keep on like that the whole time I am walking." Now I ask you, who wouldn't want to have experiences like these? Who wouldn't want to find the whole world suddenly lovely and lovable? Who wouldn't want to experience such happiness that he found himself blessed and able to bless? Who wouldn't want to feel tears of joy running down his cheeks unchecked? And who wouldn't want to hear one foot say glory and the other say amen all the way down the street? But here's the problem. We can't make ourselves joyful.